Have you ever wondered if the pain you feel toward your mother isn't just yours, but something far older, something woven into the very fabric of the feminine psyche? What if your sorrow is not a flaw or a personal failure, but a sacred doorway, an invitation to meet the deepest archetypes of the soul? Jung believed that behind every personal story lies a collective myth, an ancient script repeating itself through generations. And when it comes to the mother, this myth is perhaps the most potent, the most buried, and the most misunderstood. The mother wound isn't only about a childhood wound. It is a spiritual fracture, a symbolic separation from the source of nourishment, protection, and unconditional love. It is the wound that echoes through a woman's relationship with her own body, her voice, her creativity, her capacity to feel safe in the world. This video is not about blaming our mothers, but about understanding the inner mother we've unconsciously inherited. When you feel abandoned, silenced, unseen, or emotionally starved, it's not just a memory of childhood. It is the voice of an archetype asking to be remembered. Carl Jung showed us that the archetype of the mother exists in the collective, unconscious of all humanity, shaping our instincts, our dreams, and our deepest emotional patterns. So what happens when this archetype is wounded or distorted? What happens to the daughter when the symbolic well she was meant to drink from runs dry? This is the mystery we will explore today. We will enter the symbolic layers of the mother, wound, not only to understand it intellectually, but to feel its sacred role in your individuation. Because maybe the pain you carry isn't the end of your story. Maybe it's the beginning of your return. To understand the mother wound through Jungian eyes, we must first step outside of our personal narratives and enter the symbolic realm, the inner world where myth, dream, and memory intertwine. In Jungian psychology, the mother is not merely the woman who gave birth to you. She is an archetype, a universal pattern of energy that shapes the way we relate to care, safety, nourishment, and origin. She is both personal and impersonal, both the flesh and blood woman and the ancient force that lives in every psyche. And when we speak of the mother wound, we are not only referring to a difficult relationship with a maternal figure, but to a rupture in the connection with this archetypal source. Jung taught that the archetypes dwell in the collective unconscious, a vast psychic reservoir inherited by all of humanity. The mother archetype is one of the most powerful within this realm. She appears in dreams as caves, oceans, trees, or ancient goddesses. She is the womb and the grave. She gives life and, sometimes, takes it away. When this archetypal energy becomes distorted through trauma, generational pain, abandonment, or repression, it creates a split in the psyche. A woman may feel chronically unsafe, emotionally starved, or unable to trust her own instincts. She might become overly self-sacrificing or fiercely self-protective. This is the expression of the wounded mother archetype, where love becomes conditional, nourishment is withheld, and warmth is replaced with cold, control, or silence. What's important to grasp is this: the mother wound is not just something your mother did or didn't do. It is a pattern that lives in the collective field, passed down through generations of women who themselves were wounded by mothers who were also disconnected from the archetypal mother within. This is not about blame, it's about inheritance. And when we don't recognize this archetypal layer, we personalize the wound. We internalize the belief that we are unworthy of love, that something is wrong with us, that we must perform or perfect ourselves to be seen. Jung invites us to step back, to look not only at our personal story, but at the ancient energy moving through us, because only when we understand the symbolic nature of the wound can we begin the deeper work of healing it. The relationship between mother and daughter is one of the most profound and complex bonds within the feminine psyche. Yet, it is often marked by tension, misunderstanding, and psychic fragmentation. In Jungian terms, this is known as the mother-daughter split, a symbolic and psychological divide that reverberates far beyond personal history into the very core of a woman's identity. When the mother archetype is wounded or incomplete, the daughter experiences not only a loss of external nurturance, but also a fracturing of her own sense of self. She is caught between conflicting inner voices, the good daughter who strives for approval and the true daughter who longs to express authentic individuality. This split often manifests as an internal war between submission and rebellion, duty and desire, safety and freedom. The daughter may feel compelled to replicate the mother's patterns of sacrifice and silence, yet simultaneously resist and reject them in an effort to claim her own power. Jung called attention to the presence of the shadow mother, the dark, unacknowledged aspects of the mother archetype that live within the daughter's unconscious. This shadow may hold feelings of resentment, fear, or abandonment that the daughter has repressed, yet which influenced her relationships and emotional health. To deepen the understanding of this split, we can turn to mythology and symbolism. Take the story of Demeter and Persephone, for example, a tale of separation, loss, and eventual reunion that mirrors the psychological journey of mother and daughter. The descent into the underworld symbolizes the daughter's journey into her unconscious shadow, where she confronts the pain of separation but also discovers her own strength and autonomy. The return to the surface is a rebirth, a reintegration of fragmented parts of the self. For many women, healing this split requires more than forgiveness of the mother. It demands a courageous inward journey to reclaim both the lost connection and the parts of themselves that were hidden or rejected. It is through this inner reconciliation that the daughter can emerge whole, embracing both her inherited legacy and her unique voice. The mother-daughter split is not simply a story of loss. It is the fertile ground where the seeds of individuation and self-realization can take root and bloom. When the inner mother is missing or wounded, the consequences ripple deeply through a woman's emotional landscape and everyday life. This absence is not simply about a physical lack of maternal care. It's a profound emotional void that shapes how she relates to herself and the world around her. According to Jungian psychology, the inner mother represents the internalized source of nurturing, protection, and unconditional acceptance. Without this internal figure, a woman may experience chronic feelings of self-rejection, insecurity, and emotional starvation. One common manifestation of this absence is harsh self-criticism. Without the soft, loving voice of the inner mother to provide comfort and validation, the internal dialogue becomes a relentless judge, demanding perfection and punishing perceived failures. This perfectionism often leads to emotional exhaustion and burnout, as the woman struggles to prove her worth externally because she cannot find safety within. Another consequence is a deep difficulty in setting healthy boundaries or allowing herself to receive care from others. The missing inner mother leaves a gap in emotional regulation, making it hard to recognize and meet her own needs. This often leads to overgiving, codependency, or the pursuit of validation through relationships with authority figures, mentors, or partners who unconsciously filled the role of the lost mother. Jung referred to this phenomenon as the activation of negative maternal complexes, emotional patterns rooted in experiences of neglect, rejection, or conditional love from the mother figure. These complexes can trap a woman in cycles of anxiety, shame, or emotional withdrawal, limiting her ability to fully embody her feminine power and creativity. Ultimately, the missing inner mother creates a psychic hunger that can never be truly satisfied by external sources. Healing begins when a woman recognizes this absence, not as a sign of personal failure, but as an inherited wound demanding compassionate inner work. By nurturing the inner mother, she reclaims the capacity for self-care, emotional resilience, and authentic presence, transforming absence into profound wholeness. The journey of healing the mother wound is not simply about mending broken relationships. It is a profound symbolic initiation into the depths of the self. In Jungian terms, this initiation begins when the daughter turns inward, embarking on a courageous descent into her own unconscious to meet the archetypal mother within. This is not a return to the external mother, but a sacred pilgrimage to reclaim the lost or wounded feminine aspects buried deep inside her psyche. This descent can be likened to the mythological motif of a journey into the underworld, a place of darkness, mystery, and transformation. Much like Persephone's story, the daughter must willingly face the shadows of abandonment, rejection, and emotional pain that have long defined her inner world. Through this encounter, she begins to dissolve the old wounds, not by avoidance, but by conscious engagement with the archetype of the mother as both nurturer and destroyer, creator and healer. As the daughter navigates this inner landscape, she meets the great mother archetype, a complex and paradoxical figure embodying fertility, wisdom, protection, but also destruction and renewal. This archetypal mother holds the key to wholeness because she represents the full spectrum of feminine energy, uniting light and shadow. By integrating her, the daughter breaks free from fragmented identities and false self-images imposed by past traumas. This symbolic initiation culminates in the emergence of a new self, a woman who carries within her the strength to nurture, to set boundaries, to create, and to love herself fully. The initiation invites her to embrace her own sovereignty, no longer defined by what was missing but by what she consciously chooses to cultivate. In this way, the mother wound transforms from a source of pain into a portal of spiritual awakening and individuation, guiding the daughter toward her authentic and empowered self. Reclaiming the inner mother is both a practical and deeply symbolic process, a conscious journey toward embodying the nurturing, protective, and wise presence that may have been absent or wounded in one's early life. This reclamation begins with awareness, recognizing the ways the inner mother has been neglected or silenced, and intentionally choosing to cultivate her energy within. One practical step is to engage in dialogue with the inner child, the vulnerable, innocent part of the self longing for love and safety. Through journaling or guided visualization, invite the inner child to express her needs and fears, while the inner mother listens with compassion, offering reassurance and acceptance. This internal conversation fosters emotional regulation and creates a safe container for healing. Symbolic practices are also powerful tools in this process. Visualization techniques, such as imagining a warm, radiant, maternal figure enveloping you in unconditional love, can activate the archetype of the Great Mother within. Rituals that honor the feminine, lighting candles, creating sacred spaces, or engaging with nature, invite the energy of nurturing and renewal into daily life. Dream work, another key Jungian tool, allows the unconscious mother archetype to speak through symbols and images. Keeping a dream journal and reflecting on recurring maternal motifs can illuminate hidden wounds and guide the healing process. Importantly, reclaiming the inner mother also means setting healthy boundaries and learning to say no, protecting your emotional energy as a mother would protect her child. This act of self-preservation strengthens the inner mother's voice and supports the growth of self-trust. Ultimately, through consistent practice and symbolic engagement, you begin to embody the loving, wise mother within, transforming from a wounded receiver of care into a powerful giver of nurture, both to yourself and to others. This internal shift lays the foundation for profound individuation, self-acceptance, and emotional freedom. The mother wound, while deeply painful, carries within it a profound archetypal gift, a hidden doorway to spiritual awakening and feminine wisdom. In Jungian psychology, wounds are not merely wounds, they are initiations. They mark the soul's passage through darkness toward greater wholeness. The mother wound is no exception. When consciously faced, it becomes a transformative threshold, inviting the woman to step beyond victimhood into the role of healer and creator of new life, both inner and outer. This gift lies in the opportunity to integrate the shadow aspects of the mother archetype, those parts once repressed or feared, such as rage, abandonment, and loss, and to reclaim the fertile power they contain. It is through this integration that the wounded woman begins to access the deep well of intuition, creativity, and resilience that the archetypal Great Mother offers. This is the alchemical process of turning pain into wisdom. Jung famously said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." The darkness of the mother wound is the fertile soil from which new life emerges. By embracing the wound, the woman participates in the ancient cycle of death and rebirth inherent in the feminine mystery. This process connects her to a lineage of women who have carried these wounds before her, and who have transformed them into sources of strength. The archetypal gift also includes a renewed capacity for compassion, both toward oneself and others. Having confronted her own suffering, the woman can extend empathy with greater depth and authenticity, becoming a beacon of healing within her community. In this way, the mother wound is not merely a personal burden but a spiritual legacy, a sacred task to transmute pain into love and wisdom for future generations. Ultimately, the archetypal gift of the mother wound is the invitation to individuation, to become fully and uniquely oneself by reclaiming the lost or fractured parts of the feminine soul. It is an initiation into the deeper mysteries of the psyche and a path toward true freedom and empowerment. As we come to the close of this journey into the depths of the mother wound, take a moment to breathe deeply and turn your gaze inward. What does the mother within you truly need today? Is it forgiveness, compassion, acceptance, or perhaps the courage to face what has long been hidden in shadow? Healing this wound is not a task to be rushed or forced. It is a sacred unfolding, a gradual awakening of the nurturing presence that resides quietly beneath the pain. Remember, the inner mother is not simply a memory or an idealized figure. She is a living energy within your psyche, waiting to be recognized, embraced, and allowed to guide you toward wholeness. This process calls for patience, tenderness, and willingness to sit with discomfort, to listen to dreams, symbols, and the subtle language of your soul. I invite you now to commit to this inner work, not as a duty, but as a loving act of self-reclamation. Whether through journaling, meditation, ritual, or simply holding space for your feelings, allow yourself the grace to nurture the daughter and mother within. Each small step is a stitch in the fabric of your healing, weaving together fragmented parts into a coherent, radiant whole. In closing, I leave you with this thought. To meet the mother within is not to remember her as she was, but to become her, embodying the unconditional love, strength, and wisdom that has always been your birthright. May this journey lead you home, not just to the past, but to the fullest expression of your true self.